Tell me all about this man.
Yes. Yes, the man of the hour, the champion. I listen, this was actually like welcome to the podcast for everybody joining us. Um as well as over on our YouTube channel. This is we're gonna start here because this is the big news of the weekend, obviously, or at least the past week, which is Hideki Matsuyama winning the Masters at Augusta. And it is the first Japanese player to ever win a major, let alone the Masters. So it's a huge deal for them. Japan is a country that's really, really starting to gain a lot of popularity around golf. I actually watching the Masters. Something you'll notice is that literally at the end of every single day, the Hideki was there all 4 days, as well as like during the tournament. You could just see like all of the Japanese like media coverage was like crazy and wild, and like they were interviewing him at the end of every single round. Like he didn't really make his strides until the third round. So the first, the first round or two was kind of, he just kind of was in his groove doing his thing. Um, the first round was pretty bad for everybody. It was terrible. And the funny part is, and I think I sent you a graphic that I had from ESPN about the first round of the Masters because it's wild already. But so if you want to go ahead and pull that up while I start talking about it. But yeah, it's just it was wild to see because last year's Masters, which was in November, and it was kind of a weird one again with COVID and everything like that. Uh, yeah, right here. So last year's Masters, a lot of people thought was just very easy. And that kind of goes with the previous one as well. They thought it was just a lot easier. Like it was just a lot easier to play the greens. There wasn't really any like crazy demanding holes. As far as the just the kind of approaches, things where you have like lakes or ponds or something like that next to holes where it's very difficult if it's downhill slant. Like I know one of the holes at Augusta had a harsh downhill that led right into a pond. So if you overshot it a little bit or put a little too much on it, you could just roll right off into the pond and then for a hazard. And that's kind of how all of Augusta was played. So it was kind of interesting to see because again, you see right here, I mean, a combined score of plus 220. That's how bad it was. That's how hard it was for everybody. Like nobody was doing well. The only person that I saw that was actually really performing well at the Masters was Justin Rose. His first two rounds of the Masters was spectacular. He went on a run, I think, in the second round where the first 8 holes, I think he was like 4 over, and then the last 10 holes he went I think it was 12 under. So he went on like these hot streaks that normally you would see out of a person who's probably going to win the Masters or win a major just in general. Usually you see those kind of streaks where like all of a sudden they get hot, and those are the kind of streaks that they can, like, they don't have to play as well the next couple of rounds because they can kind of ride that hotness that they had from the first two. And he had that, and so it was one of those where I honestly thought, watching the first 2 rounds, that he was probably going to end up being the winner at the end of it, or at least in the mix as far as being like second or third place. But man, did he drop off a cliff in the third round and fourth round because he just was not even near the top three, if I remember correctly, by the time it was over. And but the first 2 rounds were just spectacular. I mean, I have some notes here on it, of course. I will say though that Hideki, like, if you had to sum up the way he won or why he won, it was really his incredible approaches as well as his short game. You watched multiple times where guys would get stuck. There was a lot of woods. There was a woods area on a specific hole. I can't remember exactly which hole it was, but where a lot of guys were overshooting their drives, and it was leading them to be kind of in the wooded area. And you saw, like, it was funny because I actually watched, like, you saw a couple guys hit the wooded area and their ball just bounced hardcore into the wooded area and it was bad. And then it was funny because Hideki's hit a tree in the wooded area and then hit like another tree and then bounced onto the rough, like out of the wooded area. And it was like, okay, this is like,
Calculated.
yeah, it was like, this is getting a little like magical feeling where everybody was ended up in the woods, and somehow makes it out onto the rough for a much easier approach shot. So it was just one of those where he was kind of getting some lucky shots like that, where you're just like, oh man, this is getting real. It's got a real feeling to it, like he's gonna win this whole thing. And then he really just killed it with his short game and putting. His round three was incredible. If you go watch his round three, I mean, he could not miss for putts. A lot of them were layups though, and that again plays to his short game that he had
Layups
basically
applies
the
in
whole
golf too? Oh, I didn't know that.
what
I didn't know you could also use layups in golf as well. Interesting. I
layups.
was also
Yep.
looking up the stroke of luck to see if that was the origin from it, but it's not.
No. But layups meaning that like you're within a couple feet of the hole, so it's a much easier shot than if you had to make like a 10 yards away
Yeah.
shot or something like that. So he was just creating a lot of layups with his short game. And it was really his approaches onto the green. He played them perfectly. There was like that one that I discussed earlier where there was a sharp decline that led right into a pond, and you saw a couple guys overshoot it and end up right into that pond. He shot it perfectly, and it just rolled straight down and was within 2 yards of the hole. So it was just he just had some crazy like accurate shots, and he played consistent the whole time. He wavered a little bit every now and then. He had a little bit of struggles, which it's Augusta. It's difficult. That's what Augusta's known for is not being the easiest for people to play. I mean, if you look at the Masters from I think last year, the Masters winner was negative 21 or 21 under or something like that, or 22 under, and I'm pretty sure that he won it at 11 under, and that was like the highest I think that they were at some point. So you could see the difference there and just the difficulty of this course. But really, it's the greens that are the difficult part of the course. So with his short game being allowing him to get those layups and be so close to the hole on a lot of those shots, really played into him being able to stay at the top consistently in those third and fourth rounds. Now, like I said, his first and two rounds weren't spectacular. Justin Rose is really the only person that actually excelled those first two rounds. The first round especially, it hit everybody hard. I mean, if you listen to interviews of all the golfers after that first round, literally everybody was like, man, it's like I'm out here facing like Thanos with his freaking glove. Like it's like that's what the courts felt like for a lot of players. And it's the sheer difficulty of Augusta, but also the greens were really tight, which basically just means that the ball rolls a lot and a lot more than you'd think. If you get like a softer green, or even like it rained not too long ago and the ground's still a little wet, you get a lot softer greens where you get a lot of recovery on shots that maybe went a little too far. They stop rolling shorter than maybe they would. Instead, on this course, the greens were really tight. The weather was nice, at least for the first couple rounds. And so a lot of guys were having struggles getting onto the green and keeping it within a decent range of the hole to not have to two putt it. So it was like I said, he stayed consistent. His first round wasn't too bad. Of course, like I said, everybody struggled. It's kind of the adjustment of getting adjusted to the course. And then his second round, I think he finished four under, so he was right there, kind of in the mix of like the top, 15. And then really, like I said, the third round's where he took off and just lit it up and was hitting everything, couldn't miss. And again, it was really just attributed to his short game and putting that really helped him out. He was hitting putts more consistently than everybody else and was getting shorter putts more consistently than everybody else, which again helped. And that led into the fourth round where he started off a little rocky. I think his first six holes weren't spectacular. Had a couple issues here and there, hiccups, but then he kind of picked it up, kind of settled down into his game and finished it out strong. The funny part is though is that the very end of the game there was actually an opening because he went into the water. I think on like the 16th hole, like it was 15th hole, something or somewhere around there. And he actually went in the water, so there was kind of an opportunity for the second and third place guys to kind of sneak up in there, but then they had bad holes as well. So then it was one of those where like he could have choked it, and it could have been one of those where it could have created a much closer ending, but he ended up finishing it strong in the last two holes, and his competition unfortunately also had some slip ups towards the end too that kind of made it apparent that he was basically going to walk away with the trophy. And again, he was the first ever Japanese winner of the trophy, first ever Japanese winner of the Masters as well as any major. So again, huge for that city and for golf just kind of worldwide as well to see somebody come from kind of humble beginnings, because it's actually kind of interesting too. Is something I heard that I thought was kind of cool that I'd like to mention was is that he 10 years ago in 2011 had been the what was it, the low am at the low pro am at the Masters. Yeah, low am
Oh,
player at the Masters 10 years earlier. And it's funny because Rory going into round four actually had the same exact lead that he had, which was he had a 4 shot lead going into the fourth round or the final round of the Masters. Same with Hideki this year. And that's when Rory kind of had a massive collapse and couldn't hit anything, and just it's been what plagued his success going forward in the Masters. And but yeah, so it didn't happen here with Hideki. He was able to finish it out, but it was kind of funny that literally 10 years ago he was the low end player, kind of just starting to become professional, and then all of a sudden is able to make this jump 10 years later to where he's the first Masters winner of Japanese descent. So
is he
it's
a younger guy or like 10 years
he's
ago he was?
no, yeah, he's 29 years old. So 10 years ago he was 19. Like that's
Oh,
what I
wow.
mean.
Okay.
He was just starting out. So super young player still. So he's still got a ton of time to make a lot of noise, and he's been playing consistently. I noticed him at least last year. I started seeing him pop up in a lot of leaderboards, and so I it was kind of one of those where he's been in the top 15 golfers probably as far as going into this Masters. So it's not a massive surprise, but a lot of people didn't expect him to win it going into it. That's why his odds weren't as high as some of the other players like John Hamm, who didn't do so hot. But yeah, he definitely ended up just playing the strongest short game and putting out of everybody basically the whole tournament, and that's what led him to a victory. Because Augusta again is a very unforgiving course as far as the approaches and then putting, and so if you can get a little bit of a hot streak, uh, you can really make a lot of noise, and that's why we thought Justin Rose was gonna end up taking it away after day two, but then he kind of faltered in day three and then just kind of continued to in day four. And that's unfortunately that's Augusta. That's what happens. So, but yeah, it was a cool. It was fun. It's obviously the Masters every year is always interesting. Felt weird to not have Tiger there, obviously, with the whole car accident and everything, and him recovering from that. It's kind of sad. I do want to point out though, by the way, that I was also watching highlights of it, kind of refreshing my mind and everything that happened. And there was a guy over at CBS Sports named Doug Bell, who after day three, and I just want to mention his name because it was hilarious. After day three, they were talking about like who could win it, and there was like four of them talking, and it got to Doug Bell, and Doug Bell was like, Hideki is going to win it tomorrow. He's going to become the first Japanese player to win it. Congratulations to Hideki. He's going to love it. He's going to have a great day tomorrow. And everybody was like, I don't think it's that straightforward right now. He's like, I think that there's a lot of other great competition that could pull away with this. And this guy was just like, nope, he's winning it tomorrow. And I was like, you know what? That guy was right. That guy should be on CBS Sports the next day, being like, "Listen, do you remember yesterday?"
He put some money down, I think,
Mm-hmm.
speaking into
Had to have,
existence.
with the confidence that he had. It was incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's always fun watching. I enjoy golf. I enjoy playing. I look forward to actually maybe getting out there this year. Last year with my knee and COVID and everything like that, I obviously wasn't able to do that, but I do look forward to it this year. Hopefully, it's definitely fun to watch too when you actually get into it and you actually know kind of the ins and outs. And if you've played golf, you understand too how difficult it is. So when you're watching these guys hit these shots, just like absurd. They're one of my favorite putts that Hideki did during the entire tournament. There was one where there was such a decline and like a sharp decline on the hole that he actually putted. Probably it was almost like it was probably like 140 degrees away from the hole. Like he was almost facing opposite of the hole, like away from it. And he putted like into a hill, and the ball like went forward and then just rode the hill all the way down and then ended up like a foot or two away from the hole. And it was just hilarious because I'm like, what a freaking, like that just shows you how bad, like how hard it is to like make any putts at Augusta, is because the simple fact that a man almost had to hit it backwards to get it to the hole is just ridiculous. I mean, that just is just a great summation of how hard it is to putt at Augusta.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you
So
know how, like, how close it was that he ended up winning?
So I think it was only a couple strokes if I remember correctly, and actually there was a really young kid, which I want to highlight actually as one of our next like golfers that we'll highlight. Is this kid Zalatoris. There's this kid Zalatoris who like was actually he was finished second place. I don't know if he got disqualified. I can't remember. I thought I heard that he got disqualified because of a scoring error on the card. Which that's why they call it a gentleman's sport, which you can argue the ins and outs of that. But the reason why they call it a gentleman's sport is because things like that. Like you're supposed to keep your own score and everything. So the him reporting, whether it was on accident or on purpose. I'm assuming it's been an accident, but I think he reported it wrong, and I think he was the one that got disqualified. I could be wrong; could have been a different golfer, but anyways, he's a young
Really?
kid, young American kid who I definitely want to highlight in the future because he's been making a lot of noise, and how confident he played as the second place finisher at the Masters. Like he looked like a seasoned veteran that you'd expect like a classic Phil Mickelson or like Tiger to play, and he actually like he was. You look at this kid, and I don't know what his exact age is. I should have looked it up, but he looks like he could be at least 14.
Wow.
Like
I still can't
not a.
believe the thing about the scorecard as well too. I mean, that's literally just like if you cheat on your taxes. It's like we know the score, but you wrote it down wrong, so like you're
Mhm.
you're knocked out. That's got to
Yeah,
be crushing.
yeah, and it's a hard disqualification too. If I'm right, I can't remember 100%. You'd have to do a quick little Google search. Maybe you could look up golfer disqualified at finals or Masters. I mean, um, but yeah, I can't remember if it was him, but yeah, it's if you do get disqualified, it's like a hard disqualification where it's like you just get like a DQ next to your name, and you don't get like any of. I don't think you get any of the purse as far as like winning, which like obviously coming
Yeah.
in second place at the Masters is huge.
Right.
So uh, yeah, it's just that it kind of sucks. It really does suck. I mean, granted, if it was this kid that did it, the way he played at the Masters tells me that he's going to be there for a while and won't go away. So, I'm sure he'll have plenty of opportunities to win in the future and win money in the future. So, not that worried about him, but it just kind of sucks because when you're as young as he is, trying to get your name out there and get people to recognize it. I mean, I didn't know who he was until this major. So, being able to actually see him out there and performing as well as he did in under the pressure, if it was him, that is unfortunate. So, were you able to find anything?
No, not really. It's just a bunch of people recapping it and really bad pictures of it.
I mean,
That's
can you see how young he is though? Like he
yeah.
is a literal child.
Like I doubt it. Why would you try and cheat?
No, I guarantee
Literally
it.
no
There's
point.
no when you finish second at the Masters, or I like I said, I'm not 100% sure it was him. I heard this from somebody else, and I didn't. This is me being dumb and not actually just confirming it my own way. But yeah, it was crushing for that to happen. Like it's very unfortunate and everything, especially with like trying to get popularity. But yeah, so yeah, so that's kind of what I had on the Masters.
Did you watch the whole thing yourself or look
I
into it
didn't
a little
watch the
bit?
whole thing because it's I just don't have to. Oh, it was Matthew Wolf. Incorrect score. It follows second round. The infraction came on the 17th hole. Oh, I think he was he in second place at one point? Okay, so it wasn't the guy I'm thinking of. Okay, good, because I like that guy. Yeah, he returned the scorecard with a whole score lower than what he had received. So, yeah, and it was following his second round. 21-year-old. Jeez. Oh,
Yeah.
that's rough. That sucks. That really does. Especially because you're making a name for yourself. The fact that you made it the cut the first round, I would assume he was probably doing pretty well in the second round, and then for that to happen, that sucks. But that's golf. Sometimes it's one of those rules that you hate it, you love it, whatever. But that's the sport.
I was kind of I was trying to find the data on myself for this. I was trying to see how out of the normal this was. Like if you could see like a historical chart for the past like 10 years or something
Mhm.
to see like the combined score difficulty if like 2020 was that much of an outlier and how or sorry, well, yeah, into 2020 was so much of an outlier year. And I wondered if that was just because of COVID or the course or whatever. I just this was really interesting to me. I wanted to figure out more behind the. the
Yeah,
thing I want
I
to look
think
up
it
on the
was. I
side.
think it was the factor of the course, and it's also like I said. I think the greens were a lot softer, so they're a lot easier to play. So you're not having where again, if you like hit it slightly too hard, on a softer green, you hit it slightly too hard. There's a lot of room for error. Whereas when it's a tighter green like it was at Augusta, and Augusta's just ridiculous. Like that's kind of what Augusta's known for, is just being a very difficult place to play. That's why it's the Masters or the home of the Masters. But that, along with the simple fact that the greens are ridiculous there, also played a factor in. Plus, last year was, like I said, kind of a weird year with COVID and everything like that. And if I remember correctly, I think there was like an issue with like the placement of where it was and everything. I don't know, but the greens I think just were way more forgiving. The course overall was just way more forgiving, and that's why you see the drastic score difference. I mean, it is really like drastic. Like being 54 under for the entire like group, and then compared to 220 over is wild. Like that's a lot of people
Yeah,
having bad
no, it's
days.
it's massive, and that's why that stuck out to me so much. I was like, that has to be something really significant.
Yeah. Like I said, I quickly saw this little this little graphic, and I was like, that's I have to include that because that's wild. Like whatever that difference is, how that difference occurred exactly, crazy. I mean, look at it, rounds under par, 53 rounds under par, and then
Yeah,
only to 12. Like that's
that's a statistical
12
anomaly. It has to be.
12 people. Like rounds in the 60s, which is like a great day of golf. Like you're in the 60s, man, you shot like a round of your life. And then 24 of them, three.
Yeah,
I mean, that's crazy. So, but yeah, so yeah, that's kind of that was the Masters. It was in a much more interesting uh major, much more interesting Masters than maybe last year. So obviously, as you could see, the kind of drastic change. So, congrats to Hideki, and I guarantee that you'll be seeing him a lot more once you get that Masters and you're finally on, you're on everybody's radar. He'll start becoming a really popular golfer, especially being the first Japanese born player to win one. As well as any major, that automatically gains you a kind of esteem. But then to win the Masters and get your green jacket, I mean, that's it's really opens up his career a lot for the future. And being only 29 years old, he's got plenty of career left.
yeah, that's what's kind of cool about.
That's what's nice about it, is that like literally you could hit your prime of golf like in your 40s or 50s, like it doesn't matter. So the fact that you're 29 and already have a master's like check marked off your list of accomplishments is wild and bodes well for your future.